This is Tallinn. It's the capital of Estonia. We're in the farther north part of the Baltic area. Tallinn is, again, Latvia and Estonia were actually conquered by and subsumed under a country called Livonia from about 1300 until about 1560 or so, 1580. And then they were divided into Poland and Swedish, and then eventually in the late 1700s, the Russian Empire annexed all of what was Poland and what had been the Swedish Baltic Empire. And so it was part of the Russian Empire from 1795 until World War I. But because the first settlers and the first people to build cities were the Germans, because the Baltic and Estonian tribes were actually pretty primitive by European standards for 1200. It was kind of surprising they hadn't already been swallowed up by somebody. As a result, you will walk through these cities and they'll look like old German cities. The town structure just looks very either Scandinavian or German. So this is Tallinn. As you can see, the Baltic Sea is behind it, and the old city was luckily not flattened or bombed in any wars to any great extent, and so it's very much intact. And this is also just the roofs of Tallinn. You can see just the Scandinavian color, the red slate roofs, and so on and so forth. The climate can be actually a lot like the Upper Midwest, especially on Lake Superior, where you have water as well as a northern climate, kind of inland. You have the Gulf Stream kind of making it temperate, but it's pretty close to Sweden, pretty close to the Swedish climate. So this is Saaremaa. This is one of the large Estonian islands on the Baltic Sea, and it has, there's wild horses, and there's folklorists, and wonderful like rocky beaches, and just again rocky uncrowded beaches. So these pictures aren't waiting for the tourists to get out of the way to take a picture. This is what it looks like when you're there. This is in Tartu now. We're going south and east in the corner. The Estonians are very patriotic. They're not like belligerently nationalistic, but they're just quietly, like, they know their hot stuff. Out of the three Baltic states, they're the best at like getting the hang of the 21st century. They're famous for e-citizenship, for public political transparency. I think up until last week they had both a female prime minister and a female president, which is I think the only country in Europe to have done that. And so they're sort of like, yeah, we got the hang of this, and that's the Estonian flag. And Tartu is an old university town, a sort of low-lying place, and has a lot of culture going on there. If you go east from Tartu, the Russian border looks like this. This is Lake Peipus, so it's like an inland sea, very, very scenic, marshy, a lot of history in that lake. There was a great battle in 1242 there. This is a church in Viljandi, which was actually a feature article in the New York Times about tourism in the Baltic and about how beautiful and spoiled they are. And in fact, I went into this church and gave a little bit of a thumbnail history of it. One thing about Viljandi is it looks very, very, very old and very quaint, but the history goes way back. But because it was such a central point for many of the powers, it was regularly invaded, pillaged, burned, and knocked down. And so this church is probably the third iteration of this Lutheran church, and it dates back, I think, to the 1600s. Here's again Viljandi, and the fun thing is you look at it and you say, well, what's in this picture? You see up-to-date cars, so these people, the people are driving nice model cars. The hedge is very carefully trimmed. The quaint cobblestones look like they'd be misery on a bicycle, but the sidewalk is up to Western European standards. You have one of the old, wooden houses that looks like something from Russia, which, it was under Russian rule for a long time, but still well kept up. And then you have more Scandinavian-looking houses in the background. And that's kind of the feel you get from Estonia. So this is actually the southwest harbor town of Pärnu. Again, the Estonians got right on it in the 1990s, and this was a hotel that in the 1930s was the most modern in Scandinavia. And of course, during the Soviet period, it got kind of dilapidated, and now you walk through it, and it's a beaut. It's just a pearl.